Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to be here because we are recording the 100th episode of the Hope Natural Health podcast. I never thought in a million years that I would have my own podcast, let alone make it to the 100th episode. And first, before we dive into what we're going to talk about during this special episode, I wanted to talk about the growth of this podcast from its inception. So from 2022 to 2023, we have had 151% growth. That is incredible. And it's all due to listeners like you listening, sharing, and just enjoying the Hope Natural Health podcast, which is why I keep showing up, recording episodes, finding new guests, and trying to provide you with educational content so that you can learn more about health and wellness, grow individually, etc. It's just been so exciting. We have had over 10,000 downloads since the start of this podcast and 3,700 downloads in 2023 alone. So we are definitely growing, and I know that it's only going to get better from here. But I also don't want to forget about my past episodes either, because there have been 99 amazing episodes, and I wanted to showcase a few episodes that have received over 150 downloads. So if you haven't gone back to listen to past episodes, here are a few of the top episodes. First, we have episode 58 with the most amount of downloads, and that's the most popular episode, which is Get a Good Night's Sleep with guest Morgan Adams. So when I see that sleep is our most popular episode, it also tells me that I guess a lot of you are having some issues with sleep. So maybe I need to create some more content around sleep. The second most popular is migraines. So how many of you are suffering from migraines if this is our second most popular episode? Next, we have Tips for PCOS, episode 59. This obviously is a huge hormonal problem that I see with a lot of women, commonly diagnosed, yet not really given much hope for patients that have PCOS, and those that have PCOS really feel like they have to suffer with this, and that's not the case. So if you have PCOS, go and listen to this episode 59. Episode 61 was another good one about mold, the great mimicker, with my colleague and one of my dear friends, Dr. Kelly Winnett. Really good episode. If you are having some interesting symptoms with no answers, take a look at this one. Episode 60, when to get your labs drawn. Very, very popular. You guys are really interested in this, and I think it's due to the fact that there should be a specific time that your hormones specifically are drawn. And if you are getting labs done, then it should be done first thing in the morning. Episode 75, Let's Get Intimate. This was probably one of my most interesting episodes and a little bit out of my comfort zone. But we went all things raw and intimacy with guest Susan Bratton. So go back and take a listen to that one. Followed next with Is Your Sex Drive Gone? With guest Dr. Renee. So here we have two episodes about intimacy and libido. So obviously there's an interest there. And I know clinically with a lot of my patients that a low libido is a really big symptom and, can be an issue in marital relationships and just in general. So go back and take a listen to those. Episode 8, one of our beginning episodes, why you need IV therapy. So our IV side of Hope Natural Health is growing. We have been servicing so many wonderful patients lately via mobile IV. Nurse Jenna does a fantastic job. And what I point out in this episode is that you don't need to be sick to get an IV. And a lot of times we think that we get IV therapy when we go to the hospital, and that's the only time that IV therapy is indicated. No, you can use IV therapy to enhance your already active lifestyle, to help replenish you, replete you, rehydrate you, help with anti-aging, help with liver metabolism and detox, help with weight loss, help with PMS, reduce your migraines, you name it. Help with, nausea, the stomach flu, boosting your immune system, your performance before or after, events, athletic events, things like that. So you don't need to be sick to get an IV. So if you're new to the IV world, one of our top episodes, episode 72 was also in the top 150 downloads, benefits of journaling with my friend, Clarita Escalante. This was a really fun episode too. She was here in the studio recording with me. So that was fun. And we learned about journaling and how you don't have to, really you can make it a practice, but you could also give yourself grace and journal when you feel like you need to journal. You don't have to journal every single day. So if you are wanting to get journaling into your life, go back and take a listen to this episode. And then the very first episode, welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast, is in the top 150 downloads. So that was my original podcast, and I should probably go take a listen to that one just to see how far I've come since starting this, 99 episodes later. And then last is episode 56, all about sunscreen. And this might be pertinent to go back and listen to now because we are in the summer months in most states, and we are likely going to be wearing sunscreen. So not all sunscreens created equal. There's some toxic brands. So I talk about the things and the ingredients that you want to look for in sunscreen so that that's healthy for you. So those are some of the top episodes that have received over 150 downloads. And we'll see what this one does and what we do moving forward. And I can't wait to update this here maybe next year or in another 100 episodes and, tell you all about the amazing growth that the podcast has had. So I wanted to spend this episode answering some questions that I've received via social media, via, podcasting, via you name it. Just some questions, because oftentimes we might see the question on Facebook, but we don't see the answer, or maybe it doesn't show up on your feed, or maybe it was a private DM. So I wanted to talk about a few questions that I've received over the last year. I mean, I could probably talk for hours about all the questions I've gotten in practice, but these are some fun questions, all different sorts of things. So we'll talk about them. But the first question was, should women take magnesium? And if so, what type? There's so many. There's probably 10 to 12 different types of magnesium. So that is something, one, to take note of, is that, one, they're not all created equal. And two, it can become very overwhelming. And three, should you take magnesium, or should women take magnesium? Well, magnesium, I have a podcast, I believe, on this. I know I have a few social media posts on magnesium and the benefits of it and the differences in the types of magnesium. But magnesium is involved in over 300 different metabolic processes in the body. So getting from point A to point B in the body, we need certain vitamins, and magnesium is one of them. So it's a very, 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 very important vitamin, and one that I test on every single one of my patients to, one, make sure that we're not deficient, because if we are, that's a huge problem, because we need it for so many different things in the body. Now, what form do you take? Well, I have maybe two or three forms that I like. Magnesium threonate is the only one that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So I really like this one for migraines or pain relief. But, I mean, you can use it for other things, but that's the only form of magnesium that can cross that blood-brain barrier. Bisglycinate is another very popular one, which I commonly use, and magnesium malate. So those are probably like the three common ones. If you're struggling with constipation, magnesium citrate is the form for that. High blood pressure, we oftentimes might use magnesium orotate. There's also magnesium sulfate is what we use in our IVs. There's magnesium chloride. There's so many different forms. So I can see why it would be overwhelming. I also don't think that magnesium is harmful just because we use it for so many different processes. But again, as always, I would check with your doctor to make sure that you need magnesium. I usually only supplement if we need it, like on a regular basis, or it's also a common treatment for me to use for pain relief for periods and PMS. So that is my take on magnesium. The next question that got a lot, I got this several times, and I get this several times in the office too, because it's kind of the hot thing going on right now, which is semaglutide or Ozempic or something of the nature. And what is my take on it? Well, again, these are my personal beliefs, and I'm a firm believer in you do you and whatever works for you. But I personally do not like this drug because I really don't think that you can, out supplement or out medicate yourself from a diagnosis. So it goes back to my firm beliefs that there's really no magic pill for weight loss. And yes, you might lose weight with semaglutide, and a lot of people are seeing some really good results, but it's also not something that you can sustain long term. So I'm always like, what happens next? Same thing if you go on a diet, you go on a keto diet, or you go on Whole30, and then you go off of those things. Now what? Oftentimes we go back to our old ways, our old habits of eating, and we gain everything that we just lost. So that's the problem I have with these, gimmicky, very popular, celebrity endorsed, things that are being used off label for what they're not supposed to be used for. Is it highly effective for those with diabetes? Absolutely. Would I use it for that? Yes. But I'm also a firm believer in teaching my patients healthy habits. And you can reverse yourself from diabetes. You can lose weight healthy and naturally and be able to keep it off if you know what to do. So that is my take on semaglutide. And I understand that oftentimes, especially women, we're so frustrated. We put in all the effort. We're doing all of the things. We're exercising. We're eating right. We're drinking our water. We're getting our sleep, and we just don't see the scale move. So I understand why we might choose something like this, but in my opinion, there's probably something else going on, whether that's maybe we're under eating, maybe we're not, maybe we're over exercising, or maybe our hormones are imbalanced. So if all three of those things are normal, which oftentimes something's off, then maybe you can consider something like this. But always have an exit strategy, because you want to set yourself up for success. You worked really hard, you paid a lot of money for this, and then you stop it. So what happens next? So make sure you have some sort of plan to help prepare yourself for the future. What are some ways to naturally lower estrogen? Well, there's 3 different forms of estrogen. Well, actually, there's more than that, but there's 3 popular ones, or I wouldn't say popular, more important than the other, more common ones. We have estriol, which is E1, and that's typically only elevated during pregnancy. We have estradiol, which is our most abundant and most potent estrogen. And we have estrone. I just said that wrong. Estrone is E1 and estriol is E3. Estrone is our more inflammatory estrogen. This one has various metabolites, and metabolites are what's excreted through your urine that are more prone to causing cancer. So we want to keep this guy as minimal as possible. Estradiol, like I said, is our most abundant and most potent estrogen. This one will tank when we hit menopause, so our ovaries will stop producing it. However, we can still convert to these other forms of estrogen. I see high estrogen or estrogen dominance or estrogen excess a lot in my patients, and I think a lot of it has to do with our environmental factors, pesticides, toxins, Wi-Fi, EMFs, and also lifestyle things. So making sure that we reduce stress, find ways to manage stress. Are we eating a healthy diet? Trying to stay away from the dirty dozen, eating more of the clean 15. Reducing your toxic burden, which goes back to the environmental things. So all of these things can contribute to an estrogen excess. So natural ways to lower it would be looking at your overall toxic lifestyle. Is there a cleaning product that you can switch out the next time? Is there a food that you're eating that you might be able to choose a healthier version or look at the labels? You could simply probably remove seed oils from your diet or maybe even gluten and see a significant change in, one, the way you feel, and two, your hormone levels. So those are a few ways. There's also supplements. I love DIM for this. DIM is very helpful at lowering estrogen. Again, please consult with your doctor. It's not recommended for everyone. And also, I love testing and not guessing. I just had a patient recently come in and said that she had estrogen dominance. And I said, well, how was that found? And she goes, well, they just told me I had it based on my symptoms. All right, well, fair enough. Probably sounds about right, but do we? And are we converting? Like, what does everything else look like? There's a lot more than just saying, hey, we have high estrogen. We're looking at the why, and we're looking at the gut. We're looking at inflammation. We're looking at our progesterone levels, et cetera. So there's a lot more than just assuming. So I always like to test and not guess and then treat appropriately. So this is a fun question. So why do conventional doctors often look at blood tests, say they are normal, while a naturopathic doctor will see things that can be fixed? Because we're special. I'm just kidding. No, it's because it's the way we're trained. We look at the body as a whole. And even though so when we get our labs back, and I'm sure everybody has had some sort of lab draw in their life, you see your results, and then you see this range with this big number, a range on it. Now, this is the range of people, the population, the average population. So that's how they determine this range that they get. Now, you could be in the low end of range or you could be in the high end of range, but conventional medicine deems you normal if your level is in that range, whether or not you're low or high. So naturopathically, we are looking at where you are within that range and if we can optimize that. So say it's at the high end, you could be 1 point away from being high and flagging red. That's not optimal. You're on like the high end of normal. Also, when it comes to hormones, we want to make sure that they're timed with their cycle. The female body hormone levels change every single day. So we want to make sure that we test usually cycle day 19, 20, 21 of the menstrual cycle to determine the optimal levels of hormones. Then we're looking at the ratios between estrogen and progesterone. We're also looking at the precursors to certain hormones, such as like vitamin D is very important for cholesterol metabolism. Cholesterol metabolism is important for our hormone metabolism. And then we're looking at the entire hormone cascade. So that's where we're looking at the body as a whole, and we're looking more comprehensively. So oftentimes I hear and I would just say oftentimes, I would say all the time, especially on social media, I hear it's like, oh, I've had my labs tested and everything's normal. Well, it might be normal, but it's not optimal. And that's where it takes a practitioner that knows what to look for, like a naturopathic doctor or a functional medicine doctor, to really understand the lab levels and find, or inform you of the optimal levels that you need to achieve your best health. So that is the answer to that one. And I get asked that a lot, and it's a little bit mind-blowing to some people. It's like, well, what? Like, I didn't know this. Here we have a question about pregnancy and breastfeeding and how long it takes for your hormones to return to a pre-pregnancy level. Well, everyone is different, everybody is different, and every body is different. I typically recommend for my postpartum patients to get their lab levels checked 3 months postpartum. Has their menstrual cycle returned yet? Probably not, but we want to wait about 3 months postpartum to test. So again, I've had a patient that had no menstrual cycle for 4 years after she gave birth. Like, to me, that's not normal. But your cycle should return when I don't even know if there's really like an average time, but if it hasn't returned in like a year, then we're looking at, are we eating enough? How's the breastfeeding going, et cetera. So I would definitely say, check your labs 3 months postpartum, and then we can see where they compare to before you were pregnant. Can you have a normal B12 level and still be deficient? What should we look for in a multivitamin? There are so many. So it's kind of a twofold question. So can you have a normal B12 lab and still be deficient? In my opinion, yes, because B vitamins are water soluble. And again, the range, especially on LabCorp, is, I think it's LabCorp or SnoreQuest, or maybe both. It's like 200 to 1200. Y'all, that's a large range. So where are you in that range? Are you in the 200s and the 300s? Or are you upwards of the thousands? If you're upwards of the thousands, that's probably a little bit of a healthier number rather than being on the low end of that range. Again, going back to that previous question about normal labs being optimal. So I think most everyone is deficient in B12 unless you're eating heads of kale, liver, clams on a daily basis, which nobody is, including myself. And then if you have any sort of methylation issues or defects of that nature, then we have even more of a problem with getting it from our dietary sources and why we need to supplement. Can you overdose on B12? Not really. They are, or B vitamins, as a whole, it's because they're water soluble. So your body uses them and you excrete them. So you can't really have too many, B vitamins, in my opinion. When you're purchasing a multivitamin, I would, make sure that it has methylated B vitamins in it. So you will see methylfolate, you will see methylcobalamin, peroxidine, you will see those, like hopefully the word methyl before the vitamin. And what you want to look or not purchase is ones that's more synthetic. Like if it says cyanocobalamin, that's the synthetic form of B12. So if you don't know if you have any methylation issues, this might pose a problem, because if you're taking it and your body can't convert it or methylate it, it might not make you feel good, or it's really just you're wasting your money because it's not doing anything for you in your body. So hopefully that answered that question. Let's see. Another reader or listener said, I'm so confused about where to start with figuring out hormone imbalance. What do you recommend? Where should one start to figure out which hormone is out of whack? Well, as I talked about in a few questions ago with the labs, is we want to look at the body as a whole. So we have what's called the HPA axis, or hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So your thyroid, your adrenals, and your reproductive or sex hormones, they're all connected. So we don't want to just pinpoint one hormone. We want to look at all the hormones. And then we're like, well, what was the chicken before the egg? Was it your thyroid that was unbalanced and now your adrenals are compensating? Or maybe your adrenals are off and your thyroid's starting to compensate. Now your ovaries are done, so your adrenals start taking over. That's where we want to look at the body as a whole. Plus, we have all those other vitamins that can support those processes, like I've mentioned, magnesium, vitamin D, B vitamins. Like we want to look at that. So where to start is trying to find a practitioner that will look at your body as a whole. And you will find that with a naturopathic doctor like myself, or a functional medicine doctor, someone that looks at you comprehensively. So that's what I would do. And then making sure that you get your hormones tested on cycle day 19, 20, 21, or 7 days post-ovulation. If your period is longer, then you can obviously wait. It wouldn't be cycle day 19, 20, 21, but if you know when you ovulate, then I would test your labs 7 to 10 days after that. We also had a 32-year-old who had a hysterectomy and has no sex drive at all. I could care less about sex. What do I need to do to get back to being young and have a drive? Well, this could be a hormone imbalance. I highly recommend going back and listening to one of our episodes about the libido with Dr. Renee. So episode 51, even episode 75, Let's Get Intimate. I believe I had another episode on libido as well. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yep. Episode 10 is 5 reasons why your libido is tanked. It could be a myriad of things. Now, what I don't know about this question is if it was a full hysterectomy or a partial. So if it was a partial, you still likely would have your ovaries, which you should still be making some testosterone. But if it was a full, you don't have your ovaries. So that's when we look at hormone replacement therapy and maybe providing you with some testosterone. I just did a podcast on testosterone and why it is important for women and how it's important, as important for women as it is for men. And that is episode 93. and why we need it for weight loss, etc. So I would definitely take a listen to those episodes because I dive into testosterone and libido and all of those things. Do you treat men too, Dr. Erin? Well, yes, I do. I obviously market towards women because I love helping women with their menstrual health and hormones and making them feel like they're not crazy. But the fun part about my job is that I oftentimes help the husbands of the women that I've already made feel better, because now the husbands are jealous and they're like, hey, I want some of that. I want to feel good, or maybe I can optimize my health. So yes, I do treat men. Let's see. Teen girls with heavy periods and terrible cramps. Every doctor just seems to say, get on the pill. What are the other options? Oh my, the good old birth control, one of my favorite things. So you have this symptom. Okay, take birth control. Oh, you have this symptom. Okay, take birth control. Oh, your periods suck. Here, take birth control. Oh, you don't want to get pregnant. Here, take birth control. There's only one right answer there. Here, I don't want to get pregnant. Take birth control. Birth control nowadays is being used for things not for birth control. It's being used to fix periods. It's been used to fix endometriosis. But guess what, people? It's not fixing anything. It's literally suppressing your hormones. That's it. But it's also causing vitamin deficiency. It's causing leaky gut. It's causing anxiety. It's causing depression. It's causing decreased libido. It could be causing weight gain. It's causing so many other symptoms. So why not get to the root of it? Why are we having heavy periods and terrible cramps? The birth control isn't going to fix everything. Yeah, will you feel better? Maybe. But you can't be on birth control forever. What if you want to have a family? Now you're posed with increased fertility or infertility risks. So why not figure out why we have heavy periods and terrible cramps and address the root cause rather than giving you a pill for your ill, and especially one that's not going to fix? Can you guys tell I'm very passionate about periods and why birth control is not the answer? It's probably one of my favorite things to educate on. And I have literally blown up TikTok several times with this. And so many women are like, what? I didn't know these symptoms were not normal. I didn't know, etc. And that's what I'm here to help you learn and educate, and why I have the podcast, why I have social media, why I do what I do, because I truly just want to help you understand and educate yourself around these things, because we just weren't taught them. So I'm here to help you understand. So the teen girl with heavy periods and terrible cramps, what I would do first is draw some labs. Let's see if we have any hormone imbalance. Maybe her thyroid's underactive. Maybe she has crazy amount of estrogen. Maybe she's not ovulating, so therefore she doesn't have progesterone. Maybe she has endometriosis or adenomyosis. Maybe she has a fibroid or a cyst. That's where imaging can come into play. I usually start with labs, and then we'll go to imaging if we're not getting any answers with the lab work. But I would probably say 9.8 times out of 10, I find some answer about heavy periods on lab work. And I've found answers on lab work from patients that have had ablations and they've had hysterectomies for crappy periods. And I'm like, well, I could see why you got this and why your period was so crappy. It's because of this. So why not get some labs? Why not discover the root cause rather than just taking a pill for your ill, especially one that's not going to fix anything? So yeah, those are some fun reader questions that I've gotten over the time, and I wanted to share them with you along with the incredible growth that this podcast had. But I also can't end this special episode with thanking a few people, because without these people and you listeners and those that support the podcast, I would not be here. But most importantly, I want to thank Bill here, who's behind the scenes at Dynamic Video Solutions, who is the person that I come and record, and he edits my podcasts, publish the podcasts, and is just a pleasure to work with. I literally show up, do my thing, and leave, and don't have to think about anything else, which I love, because none of that behind the scenes stuff is my jam. So thank you, Bill, for everything you've done for the podcast. And also I want to thank Andrea, my amazing virtual assistant who is in South Africa, who does a lot of the behind the scenes as well with the show notes. She helps me coordinate the guests. She follows up with the guests. She actually preps my show notes. She helps me with the statistics and all of the things. So without her help and support, I would be buried in all of the things that go behind the scenes with the podcasts. So thank you both for helping me make this show a success. And I can't wait to continue this journey with you. And let's do another 100. We'll see you all next week.